Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had Meglos. What was that one about?
Remind me of what happened.
So, there was a world where there were scientists and there were religious people. One of the religious people was Barbara randomly. And then there was a cactus.
Yes, the Cactus Man.
The Cactus Man who turned into the Doctor to steal the dodecahedron from the scientists and the religious people. And then they caught him. And then that was it.
Okay.
It really wasn't a lot.
And not very memorable, apparently.
No. Yeah, and the Doctor...
Other than having Jacqueline Hill reappear as Barbara, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. If only she appeared as a better character who didn't just die randomly in the 4th episode. So...
And, again, would have been nice if the Doctor, Tom Baker, had looked at her and said, "You remind me of someone I knew a long time ago." Or in the future. You know, just some reference to her that she looked like Barbara Wright.
Well, no. Nah, none of that. So, yeah. And now here we are. Full circle. That's today's episode, apparently. So, anything else?
Here's what we know already, because when we did our tour of classic Doctor Who, 3 years ago, we know that the character of Adric is from E-Space, and this description right here says the TARDIS enters the universe of E-Space. So, at some point in the next 4 or 8 episodes, we're going to be introduced to a new companion named Adric.
Yes. Who will go on to live a long and happy and fulfilling life, I'm sure.
Before it all blows up.
Yeah. It is one of those things, though, that I hope that anyone who's been watching this series has already watched the episodes that we originally watched. Because otherwise, we've just been spoiling Adric's death for like 3 years now. So, but that
was one of the greatest plot twists that we saw in the entire tour of classic Doctor Who.
Yeah, because companions don't normally die anyway. So yeah, we will get the certainly fan favorite character Adric, and certainly the favorite among the actors that have worked with him. I'm lying, although I'm sure now there's going to be a comment where someone will say, Adric is actually my favorite companion, but I don't hear Adric brought up ever. So yeah. Anywho, full circle. Let's just jump into it.
Here we go.
Now we've dropped off our Earth friend, we can be on our way.
You've made up your mind then?
Oh, they did actually take the Earth scientists back to Earth.
Anyway, I'm so looking forward to seeing how Leela and Adric are getting on. You can meet your twin, K9. You know, Romana, Romana?
Oh yeah, I guess if we're going back to Gallifrey, it makes sense that we would find Leela. Since when do you have a room?
Time Lords want me back.
Yes. Well, I only came to help with the key to time.
Doctor, I don't want to spend the rest of my life on Gallifrey. After all this.
So get a TARDIS and leave.
You can't...
All component parts are functioning normally, Master.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. All component parts functioning normally.
Even on a good day, it doesn't do that.
That's a bit cheeky. A Neolithic period, no doubt. Hunters and gatherers.
And thieves.
Well, we can't take off until we find out precisely what's wrong with the TARDIS.
Doctor, last time you tried that.
Practice.
Not completely primitive, apparently.
We
We've broken all family ties.
I don't expect special treatment.
Don't you? Isn't that what the star's for?
That is for mathematical excellence.
So the boy can count. Give it to me.
Keep your hands off it.
Let go!
And don't tell me what to do. I've had enough of what is in the Starliner. Can't you keep these two under better control?
Looks like the decider already.
He's no better than we are. Of course I'm better than you. I'm an elite.
That won't help you outside the Starliner when you're struggling to stay alive.
I feel like you should go in at night and try to steal their stuff.
As first decider and keeper of the system files, I must announce to you the coming of Mistfall. There is no need to be alarmed, as long as you all follow the procedure. You have 2 hours.
Paint the blood of a lamb on your doors. I don't think that old man's going to be able to keep up with a kid that young. Oh, unless he falls down.
Adric, come on. They're closing the Starliner. Come on.
So much for your mathematical excellence.
So they've landed or crashed on this planet and have to live a somewhat Neolithic life until they can get off.
Something like that. And maybe they come back in whenever there's a mist.
Master, alert.
Swamp Thing. Plural.
Alright, so it's not so much that the air is toxic, it's that they're toxic people.
Or creatures.
Essentially, the mist comes up and it becomes Twitter. So,
Wow.
anyway.
Scroll through. I want to see who Kara was. I don't think it's who I think it is. No. All right. She looks a little like Hayley Mills, who is a British actress, daughter of Sir John Mills. But she may be too young. Hayley Mills may have been older by this point. This is, what, 1980?
Yes.
Hayley Mills did a lot of stuff for Disney in the early 60s.
Well, it's interesting to see the... What are they called? The Outlers?
Outlers.
Yeah. These people that are denying what the deciders are saying. Now, it's interesting because, I mean, again, just immediately, K9 is like, well, yeah, the mist is not toxic. Now, I have to think, well, is it that it's not toxic or it's not toxic to the Doctor and Romana?
Yeah.
You know, it could be if this is, if this is another universe that, well, it is toxic to someone like Adric, but I don't know. But if there's that, and it's like, well, maybe the deciders are lying. Maybe the Outlers are correct. And then a bunch of swamp people rise up, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they're telling the truth that there is something dangerous. They're just not saying. So that's already an interesting dynamic.
Now, we will find out, I'm sure, in the next 3 episodes, but it seems to me the Outlers are the young people who are looking at the fact that this starship, Starliner, has either crash landed or is inoperable somehow. And their belief is they're never going to get off the planet, so they need to make a life there as best they can.
Yeah. The best they can do is just hole up in the Starliner for 10 years or so until whatever is happening passes. So, and on Adric, he's an interesting idea for a companion, what with his mathematical excellence and such, which I'm already seeing how, if that continues, I can see how that could be annoying. But I mean, it's not a terrible, like, first impression or anything. But I will say, because I just thought, it's like, okay, when was the last time we had a male companion? And it would have been Harry, very early on with the Fourth Doctor. And Harry was our, typical sort of, male companion. He was the muscle. He was smart because he was a doctor, but he was also just sort of the average Joe of the group as well. So, and most male companions, I feel like, fit that, and Adric doesn't fit that much.
I have a theory here. All right. One of the most popular of all the companions was Jamie.
Yes.
This guy is obviously modeled after Jamie, physically.
Yeah.
However, you remember they got rid of Harry because he was older. He was a mature man.
Yeah.
And Tom Baker didn't like a man his age or slightly younger, because the idea had been the Fourth Doctor was going to be older like the other three.
Yeah.
So they got rid of Harry. But now, what if they're... Hear me out on this. What if they're trying to get rid of K9, but don't want to bring in a companion that would challenge the Doctor? So they're bringing in a young guy who has the mathematical genius of a K9, even though he doesn't know how the TARDIS or anything like that works yet. But basically, it's a new, younger man, but who would then also replace K9.
Yeah, it could be. And even just on the fact that they're definitely teasing it, I think it could be that they were trying to come up with a way of replacing Romana. Which, honestly, I mean, they kind of struck diamonds with Romana, where it's like, well, you could just get a new actor and just have, all right, this is the third Romana, and anytime they leave, regenerate into another one. You could have just kept this going. It would have been kind of weird that suddenly, 16 years later, you change the dynamic to where it's just the Doctor and Romana for the rest of time, but you could have worked with that. But with this, they're definitely teasing, because Romana does not want to return to Gallifrey, even though, just with a little bit of initiative, you don't have to stay in Gallifrey the rest of eternity. You can leave. For example, the Doctor did leave. He just stole a TARDIS and left, but whatever. You still understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
So if that's it, and because we also had the mention of Leela and her version of K9, the Mark I, which I completely forgot about, that technically there are two K9s out there. So maybe it is that they're wanting to leave Romana and K9 here and thus replace both of them with Adric. Now, whether or not the chemistry will work, I'm not sure, because even we've had we've made it known that we prefer the original Romana to this Romana. I still like Romana too, so replacing her with the mathematical excellence, I have a star on my shirt, of Adric, I'm not sure. Well, also just the fact that then just breaks the mold, which I guess that would make sense considering the new showrunner. I'll put that in quotes so people don't have a heart attack. but the new showrunner who went in and was like, okay, the show is too goofy now, so we're going to make it more serious. At least that's what people have been saying was the idea, and we're going to get away from sort of the older stuff, new theme, new vision, new techno stuff. And it's like, okay, the last 4 companions have all been female, because you've had Sarah Jane, you've had Leela, you've had Romana 1, and now Romana 2. Let's take all that away. Let's have a young man. So they made Adric. And I'm curious just how long that's going to last, because I know we're going to have 2 more before the regeneration into the 5th Doctor. So I don't know. I guess that would make sense if this is supposed to be a shakeup with Adric, but I don't know. I am unsold on Adric so far, and we've already had 2 episodes that we've already seen with Adric. So, but definitely when they showed him and the Outlers and their hair specifically, I was like, these guys look like they stepped out of 60s Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So, like, it definitely, you're right, it does sort of, his look definitely reminds me of Jamie, just not as fit, not as, active as Jamie was, because he was supposed to be, a Highlander. So, yeah, I don't know. It is also basically just the thing of, basically any male companion we have, you kind of have to compare to Jamie, because he was honestly kind of the gold standard, which is weird for the young man from the Highlands in Scotland, that he's sort of the gold standard of companions, but he honestly was. And if there were just episodes where it was just him and the Doctor, those worked exactly the same, with pretty much the same levels of chemistry of any Doctor with a female companion. Yeah. So if they're trying to do that again with Adric, it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah. Frogmen. Look a little bit like the Silurians.
There's still the Starliner.
The mist is getting thicker. The TARDIS. No.
We can't stay here.
Why not the TARDIS, Adric?
It's too small. That's not what you told us.
You said it was...
Well, I can't remember where it is.
Oh, yeah.
Mathematical excellence. We're going to be saying that a lot, I think.
And cartographically immature.
We're taking over your ship.
You could just ask to crash here.
Have you made up your mind?
I have.
Do you accept the post?
I do.
And your daughter?
Kira? Kira was a disruptive element.
And what is your first concern?
The welfare of the community and the work toward their embarkation. Well done.
Well, the Deciders definitely don't seem like good people.
Well, didn't Romana describe them as an oligarchy?
Yeah.
Your knife.
You're lucky she's not Leela.
Hello?
Close the door, Doctor. Were you born in a barn?
If the Doctor's theory is right, we'll need a local image translator to see what's out there.
Or we could just look out through the door.
Well, I'll give him that. They should just open the door every so often.
She opened the other door.
Well,
That's a little too happy-go-lucky type of... Now, descending into the organ chord, that's great, but... Some odd choices of music the last couple of episodes.
Do not be afraid. I am non-hostile, operating in data acquisition mode. Explain your...
oh! Just killed the Doctor's dog.
So that's what frightened the Martian off.
Planet of the Spiders! Oh no!
Oh no.
Get out of the cave, dear.
Grab K9's head and run. Not the fruit. Maybe the spiders are friendly. Okay. Was that only... That's only part 2. I feel like we've watched 4 parts already. Not that this is bad. It's an interesting episode. It just feels longer, but these episodes are shorter than normal. I don't know what's going on with me today. So,
well, I'm not going to say there's a lot of padding, but there's a lot of short padding interspersed. You know, the marsh creatures walking through the jungle. You know, the backwards and forwards tossing of the TARDIS sort of thing. It's not much with each segment, but you add them all up, and there was probably 2 or 3 minutes of extra padding in here.
Yeah, so it's just the pacing of the episode is just kind of off.
Yeah.
So,
and the deciders are being set up very similar to religious authorities, shall we say, from the Middle Ages, who, when confronted with science, that the Earth is not the center of the universe. The Earth revolves around the sun, and the sun isn't even the center of the universe. They said, this is what we were taught to believe, this is what we must believe. And even when they were shown proof, they went, but that's not what we have been taught, so this is what we will learn. Never mind the inconsistencies. This is what the system files say. Praise be to the system files.
well, yeah, which is just strange. I'm curious about. I mean, that's the biggest thing is the system files. It's like, well, they're just a bunch of files. Why can't people know this? Like they're scientists.
Let me be heretical here for a moment. This is the testament of the original survivors of the crash, or the landing, whatever you want to call it, that has kept them here, obviously, for generations. And this first group said, if we are to survive, we must have a code that we can live by. And therefore, they set up the system files and said, you cannot deviate from these files. Despite the fact that, like the Outlers, people of every generation have gone out and said, yes, but... And they said, no, here are the files, we must obey the files. And that's very similar to, I'm not going to name any specific religion, but a lot of religions around the world have imposed those kinds of restrictions on their congregations, their believers, their faithful.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that is interesting. And then I guess the whole thing of it's not really the Mistfall itself that's the problem. It's now it seems to be the spiders more than the marshmen.
Yeah.
So
I realize it's only like the 3rd or 4th serial here, but I didn't notice that Tom Baker's face was behind the credits there.
Yeah. So if we let it go just a little bit, it goes through. It's just where I happen to pause it. You just see just a little bit. So.
Well, that was weird.
Yeah. So now, it's definite. There always is a face in the credits. So it's just not that hidden. Alrighty, part 3.
And remember, Drace said to tell somebody that they had gone full circle. So.
Yeah. I don't remember who that was, though.
And sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Well, yeah. But I mean...
I'm not going to dwell on that. It's probably nothing, but...
But it's also the name of the friggin' episode, so... It's got to be something.
What did you have in mind, Doctor?
Just a hypothetical idea.
Your entry was more than a hypothesis. Perhaps our security system is not all the manuals claim.
You can't always go by the manuals.
Without the store of knowledge in the great book room, we would not have survived. Doctor!
The good book. The great book.
Vosh, do something.
You're the clever one.
So it's basically making a religion out of an IKEA manual. Yeah, see? They're keeping her warm.
They're feeding off of her.
Or that.
Laying eggs in her.
Well, she won't be lonely.
Unseal the entrance.
But the decision was made to keep the entrance sealed.
Decisions can be changed. Good What is it? Good heavens. It's Romana. Romana?
Two birds with one stone.
Please postpone the examination.
The creature's no use at all under anesthetic. The revival will take about an hour. We will return before then.
I swear the other decider, Gareth. I swear we've seen that actor before.
Wait here. The deciders are in conference.
About us.
They have other matters on their minds. You'll have to have patience.
Patience.
It's a virtue, they say.
It's a boring virtue.
That would appeal to stealers of river fruit.
Perhaps they haven't let you in on the secret, Logan. Shall I tell him, gentlemen? Yes, and the fraud. A perpetual movement. The endless tasks going round and round. The same old components being removed and replaced.
No, Doctor, that's too harsh. The preparations are unnecessary.
Preparations. For what? It's been made ready for centuries. This ship could take off in half an hour if you had a mind to it. What?
One secret our ancestors kept for themselves.
What's that?
Nobody knows how to pilot this ship.
Aww. That's embarrassing. Why the spiders?
That is somewhat confusing.
The only thing I can think is the Marshmen. Like, there is no Marshmen. They are the people of this crew transformed into the Marshmen. So one of them is the Decider that was pulled in that Adric couldn't save. Thus, that would just make the spiders the definitive life form on this planet. Which they said something about... He said something at the end there, like, every 50 years or so, another planet pulls this one away. Which is an interesting thing just to sort of say in passing. So, the only thing I can think is that it did have a standard orbit, and just every 50 years, something else comes along, shifts it just a bit, until something else comes along.
Well, there are planets in our solar system that are not in a completely circular pattern. So,
yeah.
Every couple of years, 50 decades, centuries, however, they do draw closer to each other. And yes, what it may have done is simply pull this planet slightly out of its normal orbit, which makes it colder and creates the mist and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's all making sense scientifically so far. Like you said, yeah, it seems that there's something else about the Marshmen that we don't know. But yeah, it seems to be the spiders are the ones who are the key to the whole thing at this point.
Yeah, so... and it is just... I mean, what was the one... I can't remember what it was called, but it was the episode with Leela where they went to this place where they sort of worshipped the Doctor accidentally and stuff, and they had like the religious altar and like the like cockpit basically. It kind of reminds me of that, where it's like, generations have passed, there's no, there's this sort of control, this almost religious order around the system files and stuff, and all of it is to cover up the giant secret that none of them know how to fly this ship, which is hilarious and embarrassing, but also just a thing of like, you couldn't have just tried. I guess none of them just decided to try to pilot it. Just spitball and see if it works, But other than that, the ship is completely perfect to take off. So yeah. So that's interesting. I honestly, of this season so far, this is the third serial we've had so far this season, and honestly, I think it's the most interesting. Because we had Meglos and the Leisure Hive that started out the season. So yeah, this one even though we definitely have our jokes about Adric and his mathematical excellence and stuff, he's honestly not that bad so far. And this episode is interesting enough, so...
The doctors betrayed us.
I don't think so. He's already demonstrated his great wisdom. He's not a man to side with chaos.
Nevertheless, chaos surrounds us. What are we to do? Yes, what are we to do?
Decide something.
Well, Logan, you're a decider now.
An indecisive decider. Great.
What are we to do?
How did you not hear that?
Oh, it's K9. Poor K9.
This is what you wanted, isn't it? The TARDIS.
But it's other people's property. Do you think it's right to go around taking other people's property?
Sometimes.
Well,
He is a thief.
Definitely proven in E-space. Yes, the exospace time continuum outside our little universe. I suspect that what we came through. Look, do you mind if we do one thing at a time? Good.
Cannot return.
The doctor shows us how.
They cannot return.
Why?
Because we have never been there.
But you clearly came from somewhere, because you have a ship.
40 generations, more like 4,000 generations. Since the Starliner crashed.
Yes. The deciders procrastinated more than we thought.
Jeez.
Can I say?
Adapted quickly. They'll learn to breathe the air. Yes. They might break the ship and wipe out the crew. Yes. The manuals in the Great Book Room will show them how to put it all together again. They could learn to read. Oh, yes. Just as they did 40,000 generations ago. They want ancestors.
Nephrid's dying words. That's why we can't return to Teledon.
But if that's the case, why do you have a ship that you never use?
The page is referring to takeoff with damage in the crash. Ready? Ready? Thrusters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Ground hold disengage.
Right.
Then it's just ignition.
Which is that button there, gentlemen.
The manual's readable from there on.
Have a good flight, gentlemen. We must do what Nephrid said. I see his point, but on the other hand...
Gareth, we must live up to our names. We must make this decision together.
Yes, of course. But you will agree, it does require some thought. Well, they've made a decision.
We're trapped. Unless we can find another CVE.
Affirmative.
I guess we're just gonna hang out here for a little while. Forget about Gallifrey. Okay.
So they weren't from Teradon.
No. They've just had a ship for 40,000 generations that they were too lazy to use. Before the discussion continues, I'd like to make a quick correction, basically. So, we figured something out after the episode, which is always infuriating once you figure it out later. But basically, we figured out that the Doctor explains to Gareth and Logan that the present-day Alzarians are actually a subspecies of the Marshmen, who wiped out the Starliner's original Teradonian crew. That's the part we missed. Then they gradually evolved into human form to take their place, thinking they were the Teradonians. They're all from the same DNA and thus have come full circle, just as the name implies. That is the real secret of the system files. But that was the one thing we basically missed, was that they became the Teradonians. But that's basically just something that we missed. So hopefully it doesn't ruin the whole discussion, and you can leave your comments. I've saved you about 3 paragraphs from writing down. But still leave your comments, because obviously it's still good for the algorithm and such. So, yeah. It falls apart a little bit in the twist.
Yes. In that they ultimately built a ship which did not crash.
No.
It's not from somewhere else.
No. It's perfectly usable. It's been usable for 40,000 generations.
They just didn't know how to fly it. How could it get damaged in the crash if there was no crash?
It wasn't. They just thought they...
But in the manual, they said the first couple of pages were damaged in the crash. So, Doctor says, here's how you take off. After that, Romana says, you can read it.
Unless they tried to take off from this planet and they just never left this planet, crashed. Nobody remembers for some reason. And maybe it did take them some time to fix the ship, but by the time they fixed the ship, nobody there could fly it. 40,000 generations pass, and now we're here, where finally they meet someone who can fly it. Or just tell them how to turn the key in the ignition. Also, spiders.
Oh, spiders and marshmen and flying. Oh my.
It's an otherwise good episode.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And honestly, I think it was a very decent first impression of Adric and his mathematical excellence. But it does kind of fall apart in trying to have a twist.
Yeah.
So, honestly, they could have just not had a twist. It's like, it's exactly what they've been saying. I mean, I guess there was going to be something in the system files that, that had to have been kept a secret from everybody but the first decider. So, there had to be something like that. But still, there could have been I could have just been that, well, the Marshmen were people from, 40,000 generations ago. They were infected by the spiders, thus they became Marshmen, but they're still related to these people who were originally from Pterodon. So, but no.
Again, from my perspective, the theme, the point goes back to there's a promised land, and we have not been able to get to it for generations, and it's no fault of our own that we're here, under an alien land, strangers in a strange land here on the Nile, until Moses comes along and says, I'm letting my people go. I mean, that just, there's some very tenuous, I agree, parallels there, but but there are, again, other religions around the world where basically they are constrained by a set of rules which prevent them from advancing to the point that they should be advancing to. Again, if that is what was his name, Andrew Smith?
Yeah.
If that was his point, it's an interesting story.
Yeah. It's something. It's just sort of odd. It's just sort of an odd sort of... I still don't understand the spiders, though. So, did the spiders... I guess the question is, if Romana had not been cured, would she have eventually turned into a marshman? And thus, that's why it's all the same cells. The spiders implanted the cells within the people. Thus, they became marshmen. But that doesn't make sense, because they said, well, they can read and write that they're your ancestors. It's the way the Doctor says it specifically is that, it's the stages of evolution. It would be like, seeing an ape. And it's like, oh, well, evolutionarily speaking, that is our ancestor, but it does, exist. There are apes that exist alongside humans. It's just that apes are born of spiders. I don't know. They just kind of forgot that last part. It's like there's something about spiders too, but I don't know. That doesn't matter? No, in the long run it doesn't. It's just, I don't know, just trying to make sense of it.
Let's table that discussion for now and see whatever notes you
have. Okay. So, first impressions on Adric, even though it's not our first impressions. We've had 2 episodes prior and even watched the boy die at one point, but first impressions of Adric.
He's resourceful.
Yes.
He's a thief, which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
The Doctor has been known to purloin a thing or two.
Yeah. He's okay. I will say, at first, when they were going over the whole thing of the mathematical excellence, and that's why he has the star on his shirt and stuff, and it's like, okay, and him saying like, oh, I'm an elite, I am better than the rest of you, and it's like, okay, buddy, why don't you chill out there? But after that, like, he never said that to the Doctor or Romana or anyone else. So, like,
and once they got out of the opening episode, they never mentioned the elites again. There's nobody else that we saw that had the star. I mean, the Deciders didn't have it. None of the other people that we saw had that.
I guess it's just like Adric was basically just like valedictorian of his class. So one day he would have gone on to be a Decider, I guess, in the same way that Logan and the others are. So, so after that, when they sort of toned that down a little bit, I thought he was all right. So,
I had just a weird thought now. This is, I was going to say it's about 12 years now after Planet of the Apes, where, going with your thesis, we have this group of mammals that at some point diverged into the primate apes and the primate humans, Australopithecus and Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon and Homo sapiens, etc., etc. And then in Planet of the Apes, it gets to the point where the humans evolve again to sentient apes, which again is coming full circle. So, it's an interesting thought. It just was not very clearly written there at the end.
Yeah, so I guess that's it, because the title being Full Circle. So, I don't know. It's full circle, but we're kind of just missing a piece at the end. So, it's... I don't know, and maybe because again, it's the first, we just watched this, so we're trying to remember every ridiculous thing they were saying about these these extras and funny costumes and the goofy big spiders. Like, we're trying to remember it all. So if there's some clarification we need in the comments, that's totally fine. So yeah, it's, I don't know. Let's see.
Well, again, that in the Planet of the Apes, it's very convenient when Charlton Heston gets wounded and he can't speak, and it's not until he finally yells, "Take your hands off me, you damn dirty ape," that the religious people say, "This is heresy. We cannot have a man speaking. It goes against our religion." But the scientist, Zara and whatever his name was, are saying, but you have to understand, he's like us, he can speak, he's obviously sentient. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting parallel, but rather than full circle, we're kind of an incomplete arc at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, even that, I feel like has to, and I haven't seen the full Planet of the Apes movie, but I assume that's something that's, thought of and figured out over the course of the entire movie. And I know it leads up to the big moment on the beach and everything, but here it was all just sort of dumped on us in the last 10 minutes, and it's like, wait, that's what it means, full circle? And the previous Decider who drowned, he just figured that out at the last second? Or I don't know, I guess because he saw...
He was first Decider, so he had seen the system files.
He saw the system files, so yeah. I don't know. I did like, because there was the whole thing of the scanner not working, and just showing them Gallifrey. Technically, they are at the correct coordinates, just in the wrong universe. So the scanner showing Gallifrey, I did like Adric's suggestion of just, why don't we just open the door and look out at whatever's out there? You know, we don't need to use the scanner. Because that is something where you watch modern Doctor Who, and it's like, there is no scanner. You know, the Doctor never really does that in modern Doctor Who. He'll just, you know, take a peek out the door, and then if there's something bad, well, he'll still go out there anyway. So, I did like that the Deciders weren't just typical, you know, leaders in Doctor Who where, you know, they just don't trust the Doctor and they throw him away and he's the problem and blah, blah, blah. I like that even though, yes, you know, you had the first Decider who was trying to keep things the way they were because he had seen the system files and everything. You had the other Decider who, you know, was a bit more tepid, but he believed in the system files and the great manifest or manuals of the ship and stuff. And then you had Decider Logan, who was new to all of this, but he was more willing to listen to the Doctor or anyone else. And especially probably because his own daughter was an Outler. So he still had that emotional attachment, even though as a Decider he shouldn't. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, again, sticking with that religious theme, that's kind of where the Protestant Reformation was. You know, you have 1,500 years of this is the way we have always done it, although they actually didn't do that in the very beginning. For the first 300 years, what we now think of as the Catholic Church did not exist. But once the Catholic Universal Church took over and said, we are now going to decide these are the books that are in the Old Testament, these are the books in the New Testament, and everybody agrees, yes, everything else outside of this is heresy. Then you get to the Reformation, and guys like Martin Luther look at this and go, but if you read what's in the New Testament, this is not at all what our ancestors did. And why are we doing all of this elaborate stuff when none of that is in the Bible? You know, why? So anyway, I mean, that is a great theme. And I just wish it had been a little better written.
Yeah, it's almost there. It almost comes full circle.
Yeah.
It's so close. But again, considering especially just the last 2 episodes we've had, because the previous season was pretty good all the way through Shada, but the last 2 episodes I've kind of been nervous about this new era of Doctor Who of like, okay, so we're getting the Leisure Hive and Meglos. Like, those were goofy and ridiculous, and I didn't get them, and I'm just not sure. And now we got this, like, okay, it's not 100%, but it's, you know, it's a solid B+. It's, you know, it's well past passing. It's fine. Just a couple problems here and there. So I'm at least glad for that. So yeah. Interesting ideas, just not fully exploited. I mean, honestly, could have just used like just another draft, basically, of all 4 episodes. Yeah. So if you just took, you know, an extra week or so, redrafted all these episodes, probably would have been just fine. So
yeah, they may have been behind on the writing because of the production strike. Hey, we finally do. No, it was a production strike, not the writer's strike. If
you ever think that we're not listening, we are. It's just that, you know,
there's a 3-week lag.
Yeah, this is filmed in advance in front of a live studio audience of nobody
on Earth Day. So
yeah,
may the forest be with you.
Yeah. So yeah, we do hear things. We do read, especially him. He definitely reads the comments. I get tepid every so often for reasons. If you know, you know. You don't, then whatever. So yeah. Other than that, see, I also thought that with the introduction of Adric, we would just get rid of Romana, but that's not the case. They also, you know, I imagine Adric is just stowed away on the TARDIS.
Yeah.
So they just haven't shown that yet. They may have even left that open in case they didn't want to keep Adric for whatever reason. So it's like, well, he either could have just left the thing and then went back to the Starliner, or he left the thing and he's hidden somewhere in the TARDIS. So then they probably did that deliberately in case they couldn't use the actor or whatever. But I'm glad that, because at first I was like, okay, well, if this is where we leave Romana, because we even have that whole thing of the possibility of her returning to Gallifrey. So I was kind of thinking like, okay, well, if this is it, this kind of reminds me of when we left Stephen, where it's just like, well, the Doctor could, stay and help these people, but instead, let's leave Stephen, who probably doesn't know what he's doing and probably can't really help these people, but he's a good man. So I kind of thought that's where we would leave Romana, but I'm glad we didn't.
Because she could have piloted the ship.
Yeah, I kind of thought that's where we were going, was that, oh, well, we need somebody to pilot the ship, so Romana stays behind and, helps them, and that's how she leaves. But it was just as simple as put the key in the ignition, turn it, then read the rest of it. That's all you need to do. So, and I also like at the end where there's still the difference between the two deciders, where the other one is like, well, maybe we should wait. This is a big thing. Maybe we should think about this. And clearly Logan was the one who pushed the button, because he's like, we have waited 40,000 How many years is 40,000 generations?
Well, usually we consider a generation to be 20 to 25 years.
Yeah, so that's a long time. And again, it could also be that while they have 40,000 generations, I don't know if that's how long they've had the Starliner. I feel like the Starliner would have broken down, just of old age in that amount of time. But yeah, it's like clearly Logan was the one who pushed the button. Like, no, we need to just do this and go, and we'll decide from there. So that was also just another interesting thing. They're called the Deciders, yet half the time they're indecisive. So
that may have been deliberate.
Yeah. So again, interesting stuff. I'd be interested in the novelization of this if that sort of irons out some of the flaws here at the end. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read any of them. You have. So I don't know how much is like changed in a novelization of an episode.
It's not changed, but yes, there's a great deal more detail.
Yeah. So yeah, that probably fixes some things, because other than these minor problems that we're having, overall it's a good episode. Yeah. Best episode we've had this season, and it's a good start for Adric. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Alrighty. What's the next one called? Next one is called State of Decay, which is an interesting title. So we'll figure out what that means next time. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.